As always, it is that time of day. It is time for Business Matters. And of course, we are joined here by Don Ma. Don, happy Friday.
Yeah, finally, it's Friday and the final weekend before Christmas. So
I know.
Extra excited. So let me start off here with the food industry. The FDA is making it easier for consumers to know if the food they're buying is truly healthy. In a final rule issued yesterday, the FDA says, in order for a food to be labeled as healthy, they must contain a certain amount of food from at least one key food group. The requirements also include limits on saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. That means white bread and heavily sweetened yogurt can no longer be considered as healthy. However, salmon, olive oil, and nuts and seeds as well are in, and this is the first major change to the standards since they were introduced 30 years ago. Foods that meet the new requirements can start using the label early next year. Wholesale egg prices are shattering records amid an outbreak of bird flu. The increase is hitting consumers already grappling with persistent inflation. Wholesale prices for large eggs reached $5.50 a dozen in the Midwest this week. Commodity data firm Expana says prices are up 150% from a year ago. Prices are even steeper in California, with eggs at a record of $8.85 per dozen. Bird flu has wiped out nearly 123 million chickens, turkeys, and other poultry in 49 states. The Department of Agriculture says the number of laying hens was down 3% from last year. Egg production was down 4%. And according to government data, the virus has infected 61 people so far this year. Next, Amazon workers at 7 U.S. locations walked off the job yesterday. The strike is led by the Teamsters. Workers from cities like New York, Atlanta, and San Francisco joined the action. They're demanding better conditions and recognition of workplace pressures. Amazon workers say the company's speed quotas lead to health issues. Amazon denies this, stating it offers competitive pay and reduces repetitive stress through automation. Despite the protests, Amazon's operations remained largely unaffected. The company insists the strike won't cause delays. The union announced that Teamsters President Sean O'Brien would be joining striking workers at a facility in California today. Tesla has recalled nearly 700,000 vehicles over an issue with the tire pressure warning system. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said this affects certain 2024 Cybertrucks, Model 3s from 2017 to 2025, and Model Ys from 2020 to 2025. The issue is that the tire pressure monitoring system warning light does not stay on between drive cycles, and the automaker said it's providing a free software update to resolve the problem. President-elect Trump has put his Trump media stock into a revocable trust, addressing conflict of interest concerns. Now, how does this fix the problem? Or does it even do that? Here's the story.
Well, I don't know how I can divest. What does that mean? I'm not allowed to open it and use it?
President-elect Trump has put Truth Social shares into a trust, addressing conflict of interest concerns rising ahead of his presidency. Trump, a future public official, also has private business interests. The idea is that public figures should prioritize the public good over their own private businesses. A key one, Truth Social. Trump addressed it in a recent NBC interview.
I don't openly look at the company. I'm not even on the board of the company. I didn't want to be on the board. I have other people, and they run it. And they run it very well because Truth has become a very, very successful platform.
Trump's media has a market cap of over $7 billion, but it reported quarterly revenue of only $1 million and nearly $20 million in net losses in early November. Putting the shares in a revocable trust means Trump gives control to a trustee, in this case, Don Jr.
A revocable trust is not necessarily a way to fix a conflict of interest. An irrevocable trust, which is different than a revocable, that one is very good at eliminating not only a conflict of interest, but it eliminates control forever.
Financial expert Vijay Marolia says conflicts of interest are just a part of life. He says there are also conflicts of interest in Congress and no rules to address them.
Trump has so much wealth, he really doesn't need to add more to his wealth by his actions, so I'm not worried.
Finance professor Michael Bustler also says the trust doesn't solve any conflict of interest problems, but he's not concerned about Trump in this regard.
This is the first president that we've had that is so wealthy. Typically, you get presidents who are not that wealthy. They become president, and then Afterwards, they become extremely wealthy.
Trump now indirectly owns shares of Truth Social. His ownership is worth close to $4 billion.
FedEx has delivered some good news to investors. The delivery giant has decided to spin off its freight trucking division. The announcement sent shares up in after-hour trading despite lower quarterly profits reported and a trimmed financial outlook. FedEx Freight is the largest less-than-truckload operator in the U.S. That unit made more than $9 billion in revenue in the last fiscal year. The goal is to complete the spin-off within a year and a half. And next, the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau said today that it filed a lawsuit against payments platform Zelle over fraud. But Zelle is claiming that the timing of the lawsuit is suspicious and appears to be for political reasons. NTD's Sean Marshall has more details.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is suing digital payments platform Zelle for failing to protect consumers from alleged widespread fraud, the agency said in a press release today. Zelle is a payments network owned by 7 banks, including J.P. Morgan and Bank of America. It has over 143 million American consumers and small businesses as customers. Zelle released a follow-up statement saying the CFPB's attacks on Zelle are legally and factually flawed, and the timing of this lawsuit appears to be driven by political factors unrelated to Zelle. In 2023, Early Warning reported a 27% increase in transaction volume, but nearly a 50% decrease in scams and fraud. Early Warning designed and operates the Zelle network. A CFPB press release says the nation's largest banks felt threatened by competing payment apps, so they rushed to put out Zelle, said CFPB Director Rohit Chopra. By their failing to put in place proper safeguards, Zelle became a goldmine for fraudsters while often leaving victims to fend for themselves. The lawsuit filed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau against Zelle may harm the very consumers the Bureau is required to protect, hurt America's small businesses, and make it harder for community and minority-owned banks and credit unions to compete. In November 2023, banks on the Zelle payment app started refunding victims of imposter scams to address consumer protection concerns. J.P. Morgan and Bank of America both hinted in filings earlier this year that they could sue the CFPB over Zelle. Wells Fargo disclosed that regulators have been probing its handling of customer disputes on Zelle. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Knockoff obesity drugs apparently getting kicked out of the market. The FDA allows compound versions of brand name drugs when they are in shortage, and there was a nationwide shortage of Eli Lilly's Zepbound and Mounjaro. The FDA approved Zepbound to treat obesity and Mounjaro for diabetes. Both have shown unprecedented results to help people lose weight. The FDA says the Lilly supply is now meeting or exceeding demand. That means copycat drugs have to phase out their knockoff versions. American Airlines has settled a discrimination lawsuit filed by 3 black men who allege they were removed from a flight after a white flight attendant complained about bad body odor. The suit says 8 black male passengers were removed from the plane and ultimately allowed back on, but the men said they felt humiliated and traumatized. In a statement, American Airlines described the settlement's resolution as amicable, but did not provide further details. A major piece in the nation's economic puzzle comes out this morning. The Commerce Department released its personal consumption expenditures price index. It rose a less than expected 0.1% in November, making a cooler inflation picture than in October. The index is the Federal Reserve's favorite inflation gauge, and it could foreshadow potential future rate cuts. Here's more.
Economically speaking, the U.S. appears to be ending 2024 on a relatively strong note.
The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years.
That was especially so this summer when, according to the Commerce Department, the gross domestic product rose at a yearly rate of 3.1% during the third quarter. That's up from the previous estimate of 2.8%. Analysts say the Federal Reserve's rate cuts since September played a factor.
Cumulatively, the Fed has now reduced benchmark interest rates by a full percentage point. So the cumulative impact is starting to build a little bit.
Although inflation has slowed down dramatically from the first third of the year, it's recently remained static.
We can talk until we're blue in the face about how inflation has come down from 9% to now below 3%. But the fact is, prices are still going up. They're going up the most on necessities that households buy. And your income may not have been able to keep up with that or may not have caught up to it yet.
Fed officials predict inflation will finally fall to its preferred 2% mark in 2027.
Another discount retailer is shuttering for good. Big Lots will soon start going out of business sales at its nearly 1,000 remaining locations. Big Lots was in the process of selling its assets to a private equity firm, but said it does not anticipate completing that deal. The company filed for bankruptcy in September and blamed several economic factors, including high inflation and interest rates, that changed shopping behavior. And it's the same fate for Party City after a nearly 4 decades of celebrating some of life's biggest moments. CNN has learned the party supply retailer is closing down all its stores. In a meeting, CEO Barry Litwin told corporate employees that today is their last day of employment. Litwin was able to pull the company out of its bankruptcy filing, but it was not enough. He said the retailer was brought down by inflation, which increased costs and dragged down consumer spending. And shares of Darden Restaurants soared as much as 18% yesterday after the company raised its annual sales forecast. That's as holiday diners flocked to its popular restaurants, including Olive Garden, despite higher prices. Same-store sales at Olive Garden rose 2% after 3 straight quarters of decline, and sales at the company's Longhorn Steakhouse chain rose 7.5%. Higher menu prices combined with steady foot traffic have helped Darden maintain profits even in the face of rising costs, which include elevated meat prices and higher worker wages. Easing inflation has also prompted middle and higher income consumers to dine out more. For the full year, Darden expects sales of more than $12 billion, topping its previous estimate. President-elect Donald Trump warned today that the European Union could face tariffs unless it addresses its growing trade deficit with the U.S. Trump urged the EU to make large-scale oil and gas purchases from the U.S. to reduce the deficit. EU Commission spokesperson Olaf Gill discusses U.S.-EU cooperation.
And what we have said on numerous occasions, including from the top level President von der Leyen down, is that we are ready to discuss with President-elect Trump how we can further strengthen an already strong relationship, including by discussing our common interests in the energy sector. And as you all know very well, the EU is committed to phasing out energy imports from Russia and diversifying our sources of supply.
Now, it's worth noting that the EU is already a major buyer of U.S. energy exports. Trump emphasized that if these purchases do not increase, tariffs will follow. Last year, the U.S. had a significant goods trade deficit with the EU, but a services surplus. European shares dropped over 1% today, heading for their worst week in 3 months. Investors were rattled by Trump's tariff threat and concerns over U.S. rate hikes. The holiday travel season is shaping up to be one of the busiest on record, according to officials at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. They're preparing to manage a surge of travelers across the region's airports and transit facilities.
It's shaping up to be another record-breaking year at the Port Authority's transportation facilities, and we're prepared for a major surge in travel across the region. With 8.6 million vehicles utilizing the bridges and tunnels, and over 5.2 million customers flying through Newark Liberty, JFK, LaGuardia, and New York Stewart airports from December 21st through January 2nd. The busiest travel days in the region are projected to be December 22nd and 23rd, December 27th and January 2nd. So be ready for large crowds and extended wait times at both the airports and on the roads. Travelers should allow extra time to reach their destination. And the record holiday demand for air travel comes as the region's airports are undergoing a $30 billion transformation. With all that activity and all that construction, staying informed is more important than ever.
And just adding to where you heard just now, TSA officials emphasized the need for travelers to arrive early, 2 hours for domestic flights and 3 hours for international departures. They also cautioned passengers to be mindful of holiday gift and food packaging guidelines, as improperly packed items could trigger security checks. With the overlapping celebrations of Christmas and Hanukkah on the same day, officials predict more people, urging guests to plan ahead and stay informed during this holiday travel season. Combining exceptional artistry with soul-stirring stories, the Shen Yun Performing Arts Company is set to begin its 2025 World Tour next week. We take a look at reviews from business leaders over the past year to discover the secret to the classical dance company's success. Which NTD sponsors? Take a look.
I think it was fantastic. I think the colors, the dancing, the athletic dancing, and the sort of the connection to the culture of ancient China, that was fascinating, very fascinating.
It was stunning, it was moving, it was awe-inspiring, it was colorful, it was rich with stories, and it was inspiring. An incredibly wonderful event, a great performance.
It is sensitive, it is touching, it is emotional, it is strong, yet also delicate, light and gentle.
The lightness that was conveyed was simply beautiful, just beautiful to watch.
So it was a wonderful blend of history, arts, culture, music, dance, all put together.
The performance left business leaders from around the world reflecting on the spiritual healing and divine inspiration it brought them.
It touches me deeply because I can understand the hope they have through the performance. I see it and I feel it because a human being always needs to have hope in their life. So I feel it through the show.
God is with us. We are from God, and we are the divine, as the show outlined. And that this is something that we must return to and cherish, pass along, stand up for, fight for.
Come and see it. It's a unique experience and one you'll truly enjoy, and it'll stay with you for years to come.
Shen Yun will kick off its 2025 performance season on December 23rd and tour in over 20 countries worldwide.
And finally, markets. U.S. stocks rallied to close out the trading week today. This is after two lackluster sessions. So a cooler than expected inflation report and comments from Federal Reserve officials eased worries about the path of interest rates. And the latest inflation report as well, in the form of the PCE price index, came in lower than expected. And that's good. And consumer spending also increased in November in another sign of economic resilience. The Dow and the S&P 500 recorded their biggest daily percentage gain since November 6th. And with that, everything in today's Business Matters. Back to you.
Don, great segment as always. You know what always catches my eye in our reporting is those amazing bright colors in those Shen Yun performances.
Yeah, but many people that we just saw didn't mention one fact that I've seen throughout the performances that I've attended is that some of the pieces are so emotional that some of the audience members actually are moved to tears. We didn't hear that in the reviews just now much, but that almost always happens for every performance. And as well, I like the colors. I also like the backdrop being incorporated into the dance itself. So you can sometimes see like people coming down from the backdrop and then suddenly appearing on stage. I think that's very innovative.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And you know, with the holidays coming up, they're starting their tour, December 23rd, I believe it was. Maybe there's some holiday plans there for me. We'll see.
It'll be a great present for someone to buy those tickets for family members or friends.
Or for yourself.
For yourself as well.
Treat yourself, right?
Exactly.
All right. Happy Friday, Don. Thanks as always.
Thank you.